They can hear us now. We're live.
All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the free Assange online vigil series. I believe this is our 20th week. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This is a little bit of a different episode this week. It's a different vigil because we will be talking about the Democratic debates tonight in real time. But before we get to that, some facts here that we want to remind you of course, as always. Today is day 3,270 since the unlawful and arbitrary detention of Julian Assange, and day 223 of his brutal arrest. And as for Chelsea Manning, it is 252 days of jail, and she is now up to $143,000 in fines. And of course, my name is Taylor Hudak, and I am joined by my three co-hosts this evening, Andrew Smith, Christy Doff, and Steve Poikinen. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Please let us know your thoughts about the debate and what's going on. Let us know in the chat so we can respond to you and respond to your questions. And then, of course, later tonight, we will also be touching on some news regarding Julian Assange, specifically the Swedish case, or not case, but investigation rather, that has been dropped now for the third time. We are also going to talk about the misreporting on this investigation and why it's important that people get the facts straight when it comes to this investigation. In addition to that, we will also touch on important activist dates, as always, and then we will touch on the November 18th case management hearing that took place. So I want to open it up to my co-hosts, and we're just kind of, give our thoughts on the candidates, maybe what we expect tonight, who we don't like, who we do like. I think there's more that we don't like, to be honest. But yeah, I'll open it up to you all. And thank you guys so much for joining us again.
Yeah, so we thought rather than try to compete with the debate, we would embrace it and try out this live commentary tonight. So we are trying to keep an eye on it, but we would love it if when you're in the chat, if you can kind of let us know what they're talking about. I did want to mention something since I live in Iowa, and recently apparently Mayor Pete is surging in Iowa and New Hampshire. So I wanted to hear your guys' take on that, because I think he jumped something like 9 to 10 percentage points, and feels like maybe he's being groomed by the DNC to walk away with this nomination, or at least, for the meantime, to maybe, I don't know, avoid any.
I've been saying this for a very long time now, and if you go to my channel and type in Pete Buttigieg and CIA Democrat, there's a video from like way back, right after he announced, that breaks down his history, who his parents were, Jesuit private school, Harvard, multiple languages, one job at John Kerry's campaign, then McKinsey and Associates, and then the Naval Reserve Intelligence Unit, and then mayor of a town. And that's it. That's his whole background. That's his entire working in adult life. It is CIA cutout, CIA farm team, mayor of South Bend. Jimmy Dore has done a number of different videos on the CIA Democrats. Now, there's a thing now where members of the intelligence community transition from any part of the field or behind a desk into public service, public life. This is some nefarious shit, in particularly because their allegiance is always going to be with the intelligence community. And that automatically means they can't represent their constituents. Pete Buttigieg, I've said this for a long time, the last debate was his audition for vice president, but they have been pushing this guy as the person that they want either in the vice presidency or within the next election cycle, certainly, as a president, because he is a continued and loyal link in man, since 1963, really, the chain of um, Langley influenced or Langley affected or Langley owned presidents.
And you have to remember too, all of the other CIA agents running primarily as Democrats, but also as Republicans too. Literally just a complete infiltration of our political process by the intelligence community themselves to win seats in Congress, generally through the form of a Democratic primary run, and usually getting supported by the DNC and all of those onlookers. So Pete Buttigieg literally comes out as being the person that's like the CIA said, okay, who inside the intelligence community best fits what we think the Democratic voter wants to vote for.
Let's
then
play
printed them
identity
out
politics
fucking
bingo.
piece of paper.
All right,
Yes,
I'm looking on
yes.
Twitter, and I guess Kamala Harris has been talking about corruption or the elites, something that she really has, I think, no business to be talking about. But I'm seeing a lot of that right now. Looking through my Twitter feed, Dr. Lowe said the audacity of Kamala Harris pretending to sympathize with people imprisoned for failing to pay their debts. #Dem debate.
So I don't want to get it wrong. What's the link between Jim Acosta and Jeffrey Epstein? Because I remember there was some big shit going on with that, if I remember properly, but I don't know if I remember properly. So I want to throw that up to anybody who might know.
I am not sure the link, but that is definitely
No. Okay. I wasn't sure because I know there was a couple different people that was related
Cory
to. and I
Booker's
wasn't sure if
talking
that was
now,
one.
and he's terrifying as ever. So just to throw that in there. Sometimes I forget Cory Booker's still running. So when I see him on the
always
debates, I'm a
forget
little
that
like,
dude's
oh.
running.
If you want something fucking creepy, look up his speech from the 2016 Democratic Convention in Philadelphia, and it
So-
is the creepiest fucking thing. If you
So
like
Andrew,
relate,
are you maybe thinking Alex Acosta, who was
Yeah.
I guess what, labor secretary
yes,
and
that dude. Yeah.
former Florida state attorney general, who was the guy who signed off on Epstein's release and gave the quote that Epstein belonged to intelligence, and that's why he got the sweetheart deal.
Yeah, that guy.
Okay.
That guy. That's who I was
Jim
thinking of. I had
Acosta is
to,
just a fat schmuck who carries water for the establishment on
Yeah.
CNN.
Yeah, throws a tantrum when his press pass gets pulled.
Yeah.
okay.
I
I couldn't.
think they're talking about taxes right now. If anybody in the chat wants to chime in on what exactly the question was, but
Yeah,
there's
I
a lot
see
of
that.
millionaires and billionaires being stated out from what I can see.
So this is something Jimmy Dore did a video on, and that's something that I started seeing in my daily life. Tom Sawyer or
I
something.
think it's Sayer.
Sayer,
Whatever.
the billionaire guy, is running ads all over the place right now, and it's like every time one runs, I'm like, hey, remember that guy's a billionaire. Like he's telling you how he's gonna spend your money. Like he's telling you which one of his friends are gonna get it. Like don't fucking believe that guy. Because he just started a multi-state ad campaign with his billions of dollars.
Oh yeah, he's been spending so much money in Iowa since like early 2018. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Caitlin Johnstone tweeted, "The only person who wants Booker for president is Keegan-Michael Key, and that's only for the impressions." #Dem debate. And I would fully agree with that statement. Yes.
No, that's pretty spot on. We need to get Caitlin Johnstone on here, by the way.
That would be awesome.
We've been trying, but she apparently hasn't been doing video interviews for a while.
Yeah. So
So in some interesting news and something that's happening right now that no one's really talking about that I saw pop up in real news is the fact that we can currently, at this very moment, fight to end the Patriot Act reauthorization. They're trying to get it rewritten into essentially another omnibus spending bill, like a stopgap measure for government funding to keep it funded for 3 months. But currently, the House is passing the legislation to approve the reauthorization of the Patriot Act.
Till
And I
like
think
March 15th, right? It's just for a few months. Is that correct?
correct. So we have this little window here where we can fight probably with some other big activist groups alongside to try to get some real change, like ending the Patriot Act. I think that would be something really cool to team up with some people with.
All right.
Looks
So
like
to
now
get-
they're asking about Medicare, specifically to Elizabeth Warren. I think they're asking about her Medicare and if it would cost her votes during the election.
So look,
Yeah.
Elizabeth
Specifically to
Warren.
her.
Elizabeth Warren is a political windsock. The woman has no spine whatsoever and is beholden to each and every one of the industries she's ever wagged a finger at. Additionally beholden to the military industrial complex, and additionally beholden to the Clintons. Like there is the only thing that is progressive about her is the marketing. And that's you might as well say full stop at that point. But whatever she's going to say, her voice is going to do that waiver thing, which is how you know she's lying. And she's going to either evade a question or talk through it in so much policy wonk detail. The entire audience will get lost.
So right now I see that Bernie Sanders is up now, and they are asking him, they're asking the question right now about his Medicare plan, which includes Medicare for all.
So as of
Looking
right
into
now,
it.
Tulsi, Yang, and Strayer have not spoken, is what I'm seeing.
Okay.
For
So
a
I think
good
that
20 minutes in.
everybody was a little bit surprised at Tulsi's Medicare for All plan, because it does allow an option for the for private insurance, or to at least like purchase extra or like better healthcare plans on top of a Medicare for all. So I think some people were surprised about that. I know she started to describe more about her plan on Jimmy's show, but has yet to really describe it in greater detail. Yeah, right now Bernie is talking about his healthcare plan, which I honestly think is the better plan.
I definitely think it's the better option.
Has his
Um,
plan changed at all since 2016? Has he done any revamps of anything in it? Does anyone
I
know?
don't believe so.
Okay.
I think it's the same bill.
Okay.
So there may have been amendments to the bill and things like that, but I don't think anything necessarily has changed.
He's
Um,
talking about taking on the pharmaceutical industry, which is really important. And honestly, if it wasn't his, and correct me if I'm wrong, if it wasn't his bringing this up back in 2016, I mean, I don't think anybody else was talking about that prior
Not really, not
to it.
then.
So
it's
hang
good
on
that
though,
it's become
man.
more-
Hang on, because there's video of John F. Kennedy talking about Medicare for all in 1962. This is not a new idea. This is one of the things that I've talked to Elizabeth Voss about pretty extensively. And then last Sunday, the guy who founded Bernie or Bust came on the show, and we kind of went into more detail and less kind of jabbing. But Bernie Sanders was the perfect president for the United States in 1992. And had we gone to a Medicare for all style system, if we had started to address criminal justice, everything in his platform had happened nearly 30 years ago, we would be in a much, much different place as a country. But because we are where we are in 2019, like the things that he is advocating for are 50-some-year-old ideas that, I mean, I don't even know if they catch us up with the rest
Right.
of the industrialized world by the time we're fucking under, the AI has 70 to 80% of the
Ooh.
jobs.
All
And
right, Tulsi
They're
Gabbard's
talking
up
to
right now
Tulsi.
talking about Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party right now. She's saying that the Democratic Party is unfortunately no longer the Democratic Party that is by and for the people. She is also saying that it's influenced by foreign policy an establishment in Washington like Hillary Clinton. So she's bringing up Hillary Clinton right now, and she's mentioning the military-industrial complex and greedy corporate interests. Awesome. I'm really happy to see her calling all of this out. Good on Tulsi for that.
And something for Medicare for all too. Like I'm a supporter of like a nationalized healthcare service, but I don't want the same people responsible for the authorization of war crimes to be the same people responsible for the administration and application of my health insurance. I think the best,
Yeah,
like I
that's
think
something
that's
I'm
the best
concerned
way to
about
word it.
too, is putting the power of healthcare into the hands of the government that can't seem to do anything correctly or
I
Right.
or
agree with that.
justly.
Not
No,
Yeah,
I
only
agree.
I'm
that,
That's a
but
concerned
legitimate
about that.
concern.
incompetent hospital administrators.
But right now it's in the hands of like not corporations, but these private companies. So it's either in the hands of the government, which I agree, it's a concern. We can't really trust them to do things right because historically they have not. So I think that we have to be not naive about this. I'm glad that you bring that up. But again, right now, what we have isn't working, and it's completely controlled, and it's a for-profit system, of course.
The thing that I would like to advocate
insurance
for,
companies.
though, is some kind of union control or some control from the nurses over the healthcare system. So that way, the people most directly responsible at every point in the process are the people also responsible for making and administering the financial decisions for that as a
Yeah,
collective, like giving them the
yeah.
administrative responsibility of healthcare and then the
Because not
negotiating
everybody,
power.
I mean, some people are lucky enough to have doctors who will go head to head with insurance company and fight for what's right for their patients, but not everybody gets that. But really, the people that are treating the patients should be in control. And yeah, sometimes these industry standards that we're fighting against to get, healthcare approved or treatment approved for people or proactive treatments, it's such a, I don't know.
So guys, in the
Insurance
chat,
game's really difficult.
can you guys let us know what's going on between Tulsi and Kamala Harris? I'm trying to keep up with it right now, but they seem to be going at it right now. I'm not really sure what it is about, but both of them, especially Kamala, looks pretty, has a very stern look on her face. If you could let us know what exactly they're saying, your thoughts on that, so we could talk about this, because we know that
Kamala's going off about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I would just like to say the bravest thing Kamala ever did was let Hillary Clinton stay with her husband. But no, she always has that like resting stone bitch face. Like it's not
Prosecutor
anything
face,
new.
cop face, cop face. She's a cop. We all know that, right?
Right.
Well,
I just wanted to know what they were discussing.
Yeah, Tulsi is talking about foreign policy now and kind of the same old Bush, Obama, Clinton foreign policies. She's talking about serving in Iraq.
oh, I didn't know she did that.
She did?
So I think that this also goes to another point. We're seeing them kind of spend a significant amount of time going back and forth, which I think to me really shows that this is all about entertainment, which is something we already know. But because of what happened in the past and how it became such a sensationalized exchange, we're kind of seeing that repeat tonight with the two of them kind of going against each other. So I think it's always important too, when watching these debates, to remember that there's money to be made because of these debates, and oftentimes they are for not really for us and for the people, but for money.
Can we shout out every ad that comes up as they do the debates? Like as they run commercials, can we talk shit about who they run the commercials about?
Yeah. And also William Martyr, thank you for, I know you just like subscribed to us. Thank you. I want to say that Assange was never charged with rape. It's something that people are saying all the time, and independent media is doing this as well. We will talk about the Swedish investigation later this evening, but yeah, there were never charges ever, just accusations which were really perpetrated by the police and were pushed by the police instead of actually these two women. So we'll get into more of that to provide you with the facts on exactly what the reasoning is behind that entire investigation.
So Tom Steyer is now talking about how our government has been purchased by corporations. I think he's the only billionaire on stage.
Right.
You want to fact
Yes.
check that? Okay. So that's an interesting comment.
Right. He's literally pulling lines out of Trump's playbook. He's like, I can say these things as a billionaire, and people are dumb enough to believe them.
Who though?
But
Who's out there in the audience going, that Tom Steyer, out of everyone else running, he's the guy for me.
the same
I'm on
people
Team
that
Tom.
support Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'll take a picture.
He's appealing to the same base.
Whenever they do that polling, though, and they ask who the second pick is, the majority of the people who vote Biden, their second pick is Bernie Sanders.
Well, that's just because they haven't been propagandized to supporting these other candidates yet.
It's really interesting because Biden and Sanders are so different. And
no, but what it is these are idiots who are like name recognition and
right.
Fond memory. Like they probably like Bernie's platform better, but they feel nostalgic about Joe Biden because unlike them, he touched a black guy. Like
right, because the Obama years were so amazing, and we want to get back to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the sad part is, all they would have to do to get back to that is stop reporting on Donald Trump. Because that's all it was, is there was so much terrible shit happening in the world that we were fucking doing, but our media didn't talk about it. And that's why the Obama years were so great for so many people, is because we just didn't hear about the garbage.
We didn't hear all the bad things and all the drone strikes and all the people dying.
The guy who ran on transparency in government had one of the most closed door administrations in modern history, and his war on journalists, his war on whistleblowers, his just the media in his fucking pocket, people who allowed and encouraged their audiences to become complicit and fucking distrust any news that wasn't coming directly from them.
And I think that we risk that same thing obviously repeating itself if we have a Democratic, one of these candidates win the election in 2020. I think we risk that unless it's Bernie Sanders or Tulsi Gabbard.
See, I think Bernie could put the left to sleep like no other president in the history of presidenting. Like
Tulsi or Bernie, because Tulsi's even a little further down that spectrum, that if they allow the former Council on Foreign Relations member and vice chair of the Democratic National Committee to become the nominee or the vice president pick, everyone will be like, oh, okay, well, this is all taken care of for me. Oh, we got Medicare for all, but we just invaded 16 more countries.
Look at how deactivated people got with Q. Look at how comfy people got with Q. And Jason Burmis brought this up, I think on my show or when I was on his, but I mean, they had 10,000 people in front of a Bilderberg group meeting. They had people out in the streets all the time. And now we've got wait and see, past predicts future, sit at home on your computer, maybe talking in a couple of heavily monitored chat groups and follow the white rabbit and all that shit and nothing, and I'm not encouraging like a right-wing uprising or anything. I don't want anyone to get that out of this. But what I'm saying is that Donald Trump has put a lot of activists to sleep, and then the only ones that you see are the groups that automatically trigger a response from Black Bloc and Antifa, and it's bad guys versus bad guys in terms of how most of the world sees it.
And the whole thing too with Q is the like slogans, like the see something, say somethings. But the big one is the trust the plan. Like you can participate, but at the end of the day, like you're not the one in control. Like we got the plan. You're here to participate in what we're trying to accomplish. And with Bernie Sanders' campaign, when standing up and trying to get collaboration on issues, you get the same thing. Like he's working on it. Like it's part of what he's trying to do. And I don't remember which one of us, because we
Oh,
pointed this out.
hold on. Mayor Pete just said he's the least wealthiest person on the stage. Not sure
I
if
don't
that's
know.
correct.
Yeah,
I
I'm
can
not really
believe
sure.
that. I can. Again, look at his jobs. However much the mayor of South Bend makes,
I mean,
intelligence officer in the Navy Reserve, McKenzie, which I'm sure he made a pretty penny off of that, but that was a long time ago. You know, he was with them for like 6 years,
but
I
doesn't
think.
he comes from money, right?
His dad was a Notre Dame, both his parents were Notre Dame professors. They're not loaded, but they're not poor. Like they're probably loaded.
Okay.
They're probably loaded.
Yeah,
But
and
I
in
don't
his
know if they're
point,
like millionaire bracket loaded.
and his point is he's trying to seem relatable, and as
Right.
if
Oh,
he's not
yeah.
relatable at all. We know that because of his background. Despite if he's the least wealthy person on the stage right now, he's still much wealthier than the average American, and very much out of touch than the average American. And so I think this is just his way of trying to appeal to voters and come off as if he can understand the struggles of Americans, and he obviously cannot. But speaking of calling out people in power, Quinn, we do want to give a shout out to you. That's propaganda.
He's in the chat now.
Our friend, he is in the chat. We saw your tweet. He tweeted at Neera Tanden. It was pretty funny too, what he said to her. It was about her record and her basically being a warmonger, and mentioned something about her going to prison and Jimmy Dore throwing away the key. And she actually retweeted him, called him a progressive, and it was just funny to see.
And a Trumper. Who said that he sounded like
a Trumper, right?
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see that he was that he was able to get under her skin. So good on you, Quinn. Quinn's a friend of the show, and we want to have him on one time to talk about. Man, Neera had the feels for me. Yeah, she did. But we want to have him on sometime to talk about all this stuff, and he's a big supporter of this movement in general. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that.
I just think that's cool. Like props. Like, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Again, since this is the free Assange Vigil series, I think we should always reiterate the candidates and who supports Julian Assange and who doesn't. On the stage right now, the only one that does is Tulsi Gabbard. She is the only one who has been upfront and forward to the fact that she will pardon Julian Assange, and that what is taking place, these charges that were perpetrated by the US government, is disturbing and anti-democratic. Remember that she is the only one to say so, and many of the others have some pretty disturbing comments to say about Julian Assange. So if that is an issue that you care about, which I'm sure it is since you're watching right now, she is the candidate on this issue. She just is. And we've talked quite a bit about Bernie Sanders and his failures to address that issue. I don't know if we want to get into that again, but yeah,
something I'd like to say too, though, just in a quick glance, is there's more than just Democrats on this ticket. Not on the Democratic ticket, but in the election in general. You have libertarians, you have the Green Party candidates, you have not the working families, because they're like co-opted, but you have like the Socialist Equality Party in some locations, and just multiple others throughout the country. Even I believe there's a Pirate Party in California. So you always have choices outside of the two-party system. So don't ever feel pinched or pinned. Like even a year from now, when they tell you, hey, you have to vote for this person, otherwise Trump's bad or some shit. Like, no, you don't. We have other choices. And I think it's really worth highlighting those people. So on the 27th, actually, I have Dario Hunter scheduled. He's a Green Party candidate, and I put out an ask to see if he wanted to have other third-party presidential hopefuls on with him at the same time.
Wait, is he? Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Is he? He lives in Youngstown right now. Yeah, that's where I'm from.
Yeah, he was a Democrat. He switched over to join the Green Party.
Yeah.
he was always has been on like the school board and city councils
Mhm.
and stuff locally, and decided just to do a presidential run with it. So
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah,
pretty
guys,
cool.
there are other options out there, of course. And unfortunately, our history is been very much heavily relying on a two-party system. And there's been many efforts to um, destroy third party candidates and make it seem as if that's a waste of a vote. But yeah, we always we've had several third party candidates on. We've had Ian Schlackman on and Adam Kokesh. Both of them too said that they would pardon Julian Assange on day one of their presidency.
Real quick though, a few minutes ago, I and my MSNBC feed is on a fucking delay too, but I saw Amy Klobuchar uh say something like really stupid that I couldn't quite comprehend about like a box in her heart and some weird shit. And then she said, "And if you don't think a woman can beat Donald Trump, ask Nancy Pelosi. She beats Donald Trump every day." And I'm sure she got applause for that. Nancy Pelosi at this moment right now is trying to extend the Patriot Act, specifically the warrantless fucking wiretapping and surveillance in the Patriot Act. Nancy Pelosi is working her Botox fucking ass off to eliminate civil rights, civil liberties, any semblance of Fourth Amendment that we have.
Man,
Right
your
now.
your feed just got all staticky when you
Did
mentioned
it?
Pelosi. Like
It's
our
like
NSA guy must
Beetlejuice.
not like that.
Fucking Kevin.
We've officially named him. That's so cool.
So someone in the chat asked, this is about Julian. Do we know exactly this is from Rob Juno. Do we know exactly who is pulling UK magistrate strings? Well, I think that the US I think there's rewards for being harsh on Julian, being unfair in his case that goes deeper than what we are able to really ever find out or ever be able to really ascertain. But I think that the United States government, as we were notified about in the previous case hearings, U.S. officials that were there had a clear influence on the judges or the magistrates' decisions, and also the statements that were made by the prosecutors in the case. So I would say it's a mix of intelligence and U.S. What do you guys
Greg
think?
Murray reported that the prosecution walked back to where 5 State Department officials were. It started out
Yeah,
as 3,
they're
2
just
more came in.
blatantly in plain sight. Like they are there. There's no hiding it now.
Yeah. Maybe I think they may have had a right to be there. I don't know, but the point
I
is
don't
that
know.
right there, I
But
don't
they were
know. I
behind the
should find that out.
judge.
Yeah,
Didn't the
yeah.
judge just resign, or is that a different judge? Which
So that
That's a
went,
what's the
whole
news on
different
that?
thing, and
yeah,
that's
there's
not
been multiple
even,
judges.
and it's
Okay.
not even 100% clear what really happened with Lady Arbuthnot.
Yeah.
Her massive conflicts of interest were called out during a politics in the pub. And if you watched Consortium News last Friday or Saturday rather, you got to see the whole shebang. But her husband and her son are both named in several different drops on WikiLeaks for a couple of different things, for like levels of corruption that involve ties with the national security states of a handful of countries, as well as massive fraud and uh, uh, screwing over clientele and fucking. I mean, there's a laundry list of corruption, of cooperation with all of the wrong people, and this is one of the head magistrate's husband and son. And to think that she is somehow impartial
She failed
during
to
any of
disclose any of this when she was supposed to. Her son worked for an anti leaking data company, or or something like that. But the point is that she failed to address this. She did eventually resign, but I mean, who knows who is going to fulfill her position? And it's highly likely that that individual is not going to really be fair, based off of how this whole case has been playing out so far.
Right now, it looks like they're just talking about impeachment,
Yeah.
throwing Trump out, which it is interesting to me that they are talking about this as such a heavy topic. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about this in these debates. Now, maybe, let's see, we're moving on. Let's to something else.
And I like how it's just a joke now. Like the entire
Talking
governmental
about,
process, the entire impeachment
Talking
process.
about paid family leave right
yeah,
now, actually. That's a pretty good topic, which I haven't really heard get a lot of headway. So,
and it is Andrew Yang is speaking right now, and he's talking about how other countries, developed countries, have paid family leave, and that's a part of their work conditions. That's a normal thing. Whereas in the U.S., we know that
yeah.
that's very much not the norm. But we're often like very busy here, and we live in a much more fast-paced culture. I've never been outside of this country actually, but from speaking with people who have, they tend to say that we are overworked here and everything's
Yeah.
very quick and it's not relaxed.
I think giving paid family leave would be a good idea in terms of caring for parents' mental health and giving them the time to transition back into work and not having to worry about their job getting pulled out from under them. A lot of times companies make you short-term disability, which really barrels down to about 5 weeks, and then you have to use some paid time off as well. And then the FMLA regulations give you another 6 weeks unpaid, which a lot of people can't go with not having paychecks coming in, even while they've saved up so much money to have a baby, and there's a lot of costs with that. So it is very unusual that we don't have anything here, but there are companies here that are starting to give their own paid family leave. Some, of course, bigger corporations that can afford it. Um, but yeah, I think this needs to be talked about, I think, in conjunction with healthcare and mental health care and supporting families and new ways. So yeah, we aren't so busy and we aren't just in this rat race.
Yeah, and
And
it's almost impossible for the way the system is set up right now. I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't understand, but thinking about it and hearing what you're saying and based off of what I know, that has to be impossible. I mean, how could you go when you have a new family? How could you go? You have to be at home, you have to be there. How do you do
We
that when
also
you're not
have the
being paid?
highest mortality rate for women
Yeah,
after birth too. So there's a lot of serious issues we have in this country that other countries do not have. And we also, postpartum depression is huge in this country, and women are committing suicide at very alarming rates after giving birth. So we have a lot of serious issues that people don't really want to talk about that this relates back to.
I think a lot of it too, because this is a workers' rights issue more than anything, and it has to do with people not understanding how workers get rights. Like people don't understand that the 40-hour work week, we literally, like we as a class, as a section of humanity, the working force, had to die to get Labor Day and to get a 40-hour work week and to get overtime and to get weekends. And that's the thing that people have forgotten and become so complacent with, because there's no emphasis in education put on reminding people that like the bloodshed over workers' rights is the same struggle as the bloodshed over like individual liberation or national sovereignty or anything like that, to where people died specifically to not die in a factory and to not have their children die in factories.
I
And
think that we need to, as people, because there's only slightly less than 11% union membership nationwide. It's largely because union bosses over the last 50, 60 years have been working on behalf of management to tell the workers what all they're getting screwed out of, and here are your scraps. But we need to go back to the roots of union organizing, which is we believe that collective bargaining for better working conditions or better pay or all of the above is a more polite way of getting those things than dragging you, Mr. Factory Owner, outside of your office and into the street where we will curb stomp you in front of your wife and children, and you get one or the other. We brought a lawyer so you could bargain, you know.
And the best
But
example
we haven't.
is the teacher strikes going on, the Disney union strikes going on. It works, and it makes people in positions of power uncomfortable, because when a state as red as West Virginia will stand the fuck up and take their rights back, like, why couldn't Iowa? Why couldn't California? Why couldn't New York, Maine, Illinois? Why couldn't any of the rest of them? And that's what we're seeing repeat one after the other now, is teachers just say enough is enough. And a way that they're trying to break up teachers unions too, just in a complete aside note, is, at least in the state of Ohio, teachers in charter schools are not allowed to join or form unions, to where they don't have the ability by law to even be allowed to collectively negotiate. So that's one of those things that they're now trying to remove unions in the education process by bringing in for-profit charter schools.
So Tom Steyer is talking right now about income. I think he mentioned something about income inequality.
Housing.
But he seems to be getting like a lot of time tonight for somebody who like just joined this race. I think he's pretty low in the polls too. So that's
Tom Steyer's been running since 2017 or some shit, hadn't he?
Yeah.
Like he was putting
in
out.
Iowa he has. We've had commercials with him for, I mean, even before he declared, he was promoting commercials. They was just like impeachtrump.com or something. And it was 2017. It's been a long time, and he wasn't in the first few debates, but now he's kind of.
But he's been
Bought
running
his way in.
for real.
He
Yeah,
wasn't
paid in.
running, but he was like running
was
commercials.
teasing the idea to. Okay.
I think so.
But
I think
just
he was
really
playing with it in Iowa for a very long time. It was interesting. Nobody knew who he was, and when he popped into these debates, I was like, oh, that's the guy with the commercials that we've been watching for like the last 18 months.
I thought he was
very
the
strange.
Motel 6 guy for the longest time.
So William Martyr in our chat, I don't know what he's referring to, but he said, but I want to make it clear, we don't advocate for violence. William Martyr saying, please don't advocate for violence. There's a way to expel fascism peacefully. Maybe we should talk about the Carnation Revolution of Portugal, 1974. We do not advocate for violence. We're very clear about that. So I want to make note of that.
When I said we need to get back to the use of union organizing, it was because the choice you want to go with is let's collectively bargain for better, working conditions and wages and whatnot, because really, honestly, dragging a CEO out into the street at this point is a little bit hard, since they all have like fucking Tiger Swan and shit working for them. And
it doesn't change the nature of the problem. It doesn't.
No.
It expels initial rage to be able to destroy an object or a person in such a way, but it doesn't actually get to the root of any issues. You just remove like a surface pimple, but the entire wart's still there behind it.
At the same time, even Martin Luther King Jr. recognized the fact that peaceful actions weren't successful without the real or perceived threat of immediate violence.
Mm-hmm.
From an activist standpoint, we really want to caution people that if somebody is encouraging violence or asking you to be part of some sort of violent action, that is a huge red flag of infiltration.
Yeah, that's usually the Fed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
especially if they know how to get weapons or explosives.
Stay away from that.
Guaranteed. If you meet someone and like the fifth thing they say to you is they know how or where to get weapons or explosives, they're working as an agent for someone's government or municipality.
And it can escalate even slower than that too.
Yeah.
It could start out as someone who introduces themselves as a friend to you, common ideology, can speak our language, so to speak, about what's going on, and then grows into, hey, I can get smoke bombs, or hey, do you want to shut a bridge down? And things like that, that you aren't inherently comfortable with and you aren't inherently the thought progenitor of, in so many words. So be careful for that too, because that's more what you see too, is someone slowly stepping up an escalation to make you comfortable with saying yes to them. So it's a sales process for the intelligence community, and it's
Yeah.
something that Susie highlights really well.
Yeah, her part 3 of Freeing Julian is really an activist handbook and things to look out for and things that she's experienced in her activist life and in the campaign she's been involved in and what she's seen. And that's, I'd recommend anybody who's involved in any form of activism read that, just so that you're aware. I mean, you can get paranoid and worried, but you just need to be aware of what to look out for.
Yeah, and another important thing too is that, and Susie makes this point a lot, is that they're all trained. All of these intelligence operatives, human intelligence, they're all trained the same way. They're all trained with the same tactics. If you know them, you're easy to spot them. So that's why education is so important. They are trained by the same manuals. So they're easy to spot if you know them. And again, like Christy was saying, sure, people can get paranoid, but there's a good, healthy, skepticism of others that you should have. But when you have the knowledge and you know what to look for, you'll feel more at ease. But again, we do not condone violent actions at all. And if somebody is encouraging that, it is a red flag. Now, we are on a commercial break right now, and I know that we wanted to talk about some of the news that has taken place. One thing I think we all want to touch on, guys, is that, listen, Julian Assange was never charged with rape. You will hear that from many people. You will hear it all the time from people in the corporate media, but you will hear it, unfortunately, sometimes from people in independent media. And part of the reason why we created these vigils and our one of our objectives with Action for Assange is to call out people or hold them accountable when they are repeating corporate media talking points. So whenever you see that there were rape charges, you need to correct them and you need to hold them accountable. Even if you feel uncomfortable doing so, do it, because it's no longer an excuse to say that, oh, it's an easy mistake to make. No, it's not. I'm a journalist myself, and it is not okay. That's a huge mistake. That's not a minor mistake. That's a huge mistake to make. And no matter how big or small the mistake is, that is never okay, because what happens is it has real world implications for people when you wrongfully report on something that they have done. If you say that they're charged with something when they never were, that implicates that has real implications for them and harms their case. So I know that you guys have some thoughts about this as well, but we wanted to really, really make sure that everybody was super clear about the nature of this investigation and what is and is not true.
Right. I think we have tried to be, I know Unity for J has, and this vigil has carried it on too. And a lot of supporters have tried to meticulously correct smears and articles. There's been perfectly good articles that will, everything else is correct, but they'll say rape charges. And we're 9, almost 10 years into this investigation. It's no longer an easy mistake to make when you keep saying he's been charged with rape. Even if you're saying the charges have been dropped, he's no longer charged with rape. He was never charged with anything. The bail violation, the bail violation that he was convicted of was from a European arrest warrant from this investigation. So people are still saying that he's serving time for this bail sentence, which he is not. That is expired. But that bail sentence came from this investigation that has been dropped 3 times, almost 4 times. Sweden tried to drop this in 2013, but the UK, the Crown, pushed them to keep going. We have those emails. We have that. That's a fact. That's not a conspiracy theory. So I really encourage you as listeners and as viewers, pressure your independent media to get this correct, because this smear continues to live because people will not report correctly.
Hell yeah. It's and it's not just the outlets that are pressured or paid or voluntarily report incorrectly. It happens too often in independent media. Taylor called out, I think it was Nico the other day, for it, and the answer was, I was just, printing the headline. You're supposed to be better than that.
And the
You're
video that
Well,
he popped up though did say investigation.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But I
So
mean, it is so important because there were no charges at all. Not the charges were never filed. As Christie said, the investigation was dropped three. This is the third time. Would have been for the Crown Prosecution Service intervened to the point of shutting it down, allowing it to continue, allowing the investigation to continue. Um, I did a pretty extensive show on this the other. I tried to. I was getting hit pretty hard with the uh, internet fuzz. But one of Julian's lawyers, Hannah Johnson, had a great thread on Twitter that breaks down a lot of this, and I highly recommend that you guys go and take a look at that from the other day. The
One of the other
timeline. Go ahead.
one of the other points I just want to bring up is I'm seeing a lot of he fled Sweden to the UK, and
Yeah.
I want people to know he stayed in 5 weeks in Sweden when this opened in 2010. He asked for permission to leave. The main prosecutor gave him permission, and then when he left Sweden to go back to the UK because they were getting ready to do a release, that's when they sounded off on the red alert warning, and basically what they do with terrorists on this arrest warrant, and put it at the highest level, this red alert level. So not only is that an incorrect statement, because we get a lot of he was hiding in the embassy from Sweden, he fled Sweden, he ran away. That's not true. And for 6 years in the embassy, he was willing to cooperate with Sweden. His lawyers had to go to the Swedish Supreme Court to get the prosecutor to go to London because she was just sitting on it and she refused to go to London. When he kept saying, I will talk to you, come interview me again, because he'd already been interviewed in 2010 in Sweden. So there's a lot of, even if they're not even saying rape charges, there's a lot of pieces of this that people like to nitpick and change slightly to make him look like he wasn't cooperating. He was fleeing. He was running away. He was this, he was that. So I mean, you've got the whole rapist smear, but even as the prosecutor was doing her conference the other day saying they were closing it, she was still like just, well, the evidence, the witness was credible, but the evidence wasn't. Like, just these tiny little like words matter to make it seem that Julian Assange is somebody who was uncooperative, who was running away from justice, who didn't want to clear his name. It's not just the rapist smear that this, and this has been going on for the better part of a decade, that has destroyed this man's character. So Nils Meltzer even said in his tweet, he had a great tweet saying this needs a full-fledged investigation. He had sent a letter to Sweden asking them to address, I think it was 50 points of violating human rights through, or just rights in general, throughout this investigation that they had been violating. Like, what is Sweden going to do to make up for this? Can they make up for this? There's no way they can make up for this because they've destroyed this man's character and reputation,
They
and
destroyed
they've
his
poisoned the
family,
minds of people.
like more than just what they did to Julian. They destroyed his family. They destroyed his mother. They've destroyed everything around him,
Mhm.
more than just him himself, which they have destroyed, which
Well, I
is
think we
the
should
other point.
well, I think we should be careful to say destroyed because that is so like it's so final to say that, I
Yeah,
guess. I
I mean,
think it can be
maybe the
over
public perception
the
has
public
been
perception. This can be overcome.
damaged. Maybe damaged is the better word.
Yeah. So again, now I'm amazed by this. I know we do want to talk about the debate, but we also want to touch on news. But again, right now I'm seeing Tom Steyer is speaking again. I think that's really interesting, guys, because he seems to be getting a lot of time tonight for somebody who yeah, he just seems to be getting quite a bit of time. Tulsi was just speaking. They've been talking about climate change. Um, but yeah, he just seems to be getting a lot of time. And
Yeah, we're
I
talking
don't know
about climate
if
change, is
really.
that correct?
So, all right. Yeah, if you guys have questions for us in the chat, please let us know. Please, leave us some questions. Let us know what's going on in the debate if you are watching, or if you have questions about the Swedish investigation and just about Julian Assange in general. Do let us know in the chat your thoughts. Can we take the free Assange message to the climate strikes? Hell yes, you can. We
Yes.
encourage you to do so. Absolutely. Not even just climate strikes, but other things as well, other movements as well. You could have a sign up that has like a climate message on one side, and then on the other side, free Assange, something like that. So use both sides of a sign, wear like a WikiLeaks t-shirt or a free Assange t-shirt, something. Absolutely. Do spread the message to free Julian Assange at other events. That's a great point. RSK, thank you for asking.
A great WikiLeaks relevant flyer to pass out. If you go to the 10th anniversary of WikiLeaks, they have the Milton report, which showed how there was like billions of tons of toxic chemicals being dumped into the ocean, I believe. And then also, there's no infographics out that I know of for it yet, but fish rot, the newest release that's out about how Nambia was selling its fishing grounds off the coast.
Namibia.
Namibia. Sorry, I mix around my Western African countries quite a bit. Namibia was selling its fishing rights to essentially the highest bidder, which was a corporation that had ties throughout the Western democracy and influenced by the United States. So that's another environmental action that WikiLeaks is actually fighting for, to try to end the overfarming of fish and the factory, I don't know, fisheries more or less that are out there in the ocean.
So Humanity brought up hashtag climate strikers for Assange. So we always want to make sure that the Assange message is getting its own credit on its own. However, I do kind of like this hashtag because it could bring other activists to filter over into the free Assange movement as well. So that's an interesting hashtag. I encourage you to use it, especially when climate change events are taking place. So Humanity has the hashtag climate strikers for Assange. It's interesting. And I think it's a good idea to kind of get more people passionate about this movement, because we always say we want people on various sides of the political spectrum with various viewpoints and passions to become involved in this, because this is going to take everybody on the ground to really make a difference with this case and with this entire situation.
Graham Elwood just tweeted, Joe Biden sounds like a drunk guy at a sports bar saying he invented football. Hashtag Dem debate. I'm really enjoying him and Ron's tweets. They've got some good ones going as they're live tweeting this too.
Yeah, and they're also going live after the debates from Australia. So they are friends of our vigils. So once we wrap up, do check them out, because they will be discussing everything that's happening right now. And they do a good job. Very funny too.
So, on an interesting thing that I hope you guys didn't forget about, it started out as a joke in our Zoom chat, but doing like a vigil dedicated or a show dedicated to Embassy Cat. We actually got Ron Placone to agree sometime in December to do a show with Lucy dedicated to Embassy Cat. So I don't know what the hell it's going to be yet, but we're going to do something. So that's a cool show that we'll have with Ron in probably like a month or so.
Yeah, I'm hoping my cat will join too. We can each have everybody.
I can borrow my friend's cat. Just had a bunch of kittens. I can borrow a couple
bring
of
kittens.
Do it.
So
fluffy orange ones, and so cute. Just want to, if you roll them in sterno and light them on fire, they make great shark bait.
What? No.
Huh?
So truly
Do not condone the killing of kittens.
Truly Progressive says, why are you discussing the Dem debates? Which one will beat Trump? None of them. Tulsi would be lucky to take back the Dems from Clinton Dems, but I don't think that will happen. Do you? I mean, we're talking about this because
Well,
it's on right now.
Yeah, we kind of
And
said at the beginning we were embracing, instead of trying to compete with it, we would do some live commentary and try to, talk about WikiLeaks with the questions, as well as, talking about Assange news intertwined, and obviously afterwards we'll get more into things as well.
yeah, exactly. Um,
What are they talking about right now in the Dem debates?
Kamala Harris
Donald Trump.
is
Oh,
speaking.
oh man, that's
Now
so.
yeah, the Iran nuclear deal. Not really sure. Yeah, I think it's largely about Donald Trump.
It's not sad.
I feel like Kamala Harris right now, just by like looking at her facial expressions and her demeanor, I feel like she knows that this is like her last chance to stick in the race, because she has been falling in the polls, because Tulsi really called her out, which was great.
Yeah.
But I definitely see that her really trying to cling to being relevant in this race, really. And she's been dropping in the polls, had to cut her campaign staffers and that sort of thing. But if you guys do want us to talk more about the news regarding Julian Assange or other issues, please let us know in the chat and we'll touch on that. But we did, like Christy was saying, want to talk about the debates because they were on, and I thought it would be interesting.
So with Steyer too, just because he's been getting so much time tonight on the Democratic debates, the Democratic Party is completely bankrupt. They require debt. They require big money donors. Small dollar donors cannot fund the Democratic Party machine as it exists right now. It takes millions upon millions of dollars pumped out to think tanks and shell organizations to enrich and fund themselves to be able to continue their corrupt process. And what Steyer does is he funds them. He hires these groups, he hires these parties, he hires the consultant class to do this work for him, to run these ads, to be able to get him on the stage, to be able to get the talk time, to be able to try to build name recognition or whatever maniacal fucking plan he has in the background. So I think that's important to get out too, is Dems are broke. Steyer gives them millions of dollars to their consultants. The consultants say, hey, this guy looks like he's pretty good in the polls that we get to rig. So it's all a joke.
All right, so William Martyr says, I don't think there's anybody in the chat that you need to convince that Julian Assange is a good guy. We know that already. He's our hero. Now, how do we organize to end this fascism? Let's talk. Well, that's why we do these visuals,
Cool.
to talk about
You
how
wanna
we
talk
can be
about-
different. So why don't we get on, talk about activism, decentralized activism, and maybe touch on some important dates as well. I know we usually like to hit that at the end. So up to you guys.
We can do dates now, and then we'll talk about what to do after that with like decentralized activism and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are some events actually happening in Europe. There is a new book in defense of Julian Assange, I believe it's called. They're having kind of a, like, I don't want to say unveiling, but they're having a big event for that book, I believe, this Sunday. There is also a public lecture on the 28th. I believe Emmy's group, Julian Assange Defense Committee, Wise Up Action, I think they will be at Belmarsh on November 30th protesting. So yeah, I mean, go to Unity for J, Candles for Assange on Twitter, and to get all those dates. But really, anytime that you and your friends can get together to hang up some signs, hand out flyers, go to a local event and hold posters, handing things out to people. Really, you can chime in and do your thing whenever you want. You don't have to wait for any of these big city dates. A lot of cities like to stand in solidarity with London when they have big protests, but anytime is the right time.
Yeah, the goal of decentralized action is to start a movement that doesn't require someone to tell you where to go or what to do at any given time. for me particularly, I have the time and the money and the resources to spend a couple hours a week putting up signs. I don't always get to do it every single week, but most weeks I can go out once, put signs up in a specific area, whether it's trying to raise awareness outside of a local TV station, and then we send them a corresponding press release, or going to a political event and putting signs up or passing them out to the people that are around it. Taylor and I recently actually went to a Joe Rogan stand up where we went, shook people's hands, said, "Hey, do you know what's going on with Julian Assange, the person that Tulsi Gabbard was talking about?" And then got to have 200 little conversations, pass out a bunch of wristbands, hand out signs for people to hold up, and then also walked around and put signs up around the entire building. So if anyone was coming or going at any time, they saw that sign there that was completely out of place for the rest of the entire universe of distraction that was built around it. So doing what you can with what you have is the most important thing. And sometimes it's going to city council meetings and speaking up for just local laws that are bullshit. Sometimes what that means is helping your communities become more food sustainable. Sometimes it means going out and putting up flyers in different communities, or going to community events and passing up flyers. So it's whatever doing what you can for your community means to you, and in what way you can actually act it out as a person.
There's a great great thing in the chat here, Jerry Alatolo. I don't necessarily have the videography skills to create the easily made free Assange documentaries consisting of 2-minute personal statements on freeing Assange, so suggesting here. If you guys, if that's something we could put together, you're welcome to like email us video clips.
Yeah, there was one done, I think it was at the end of 2018. Somebody through Unity for J did something similar. But yeah, anytime people want to start putting together things like that, that would be awesome.
Get a hashtag going, see if we can't get fucking Roger Waters and Pam Anderson to chime in on it.
So can I do a London shout out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So for anyone who doesn't know, we're trying to get Taylor and Steve to London in February to cover Julian's trial at Belmarsh, or wherever the location may be. And then Christy and I are trying to get to DC to help promote and have actions organized throughout that I believe it's the last week in February leading into March.
As of right now, it's February 24th. That last week. Things could change, so just be mindful of that. But yeah.
And any donation is so appreciated and is very helpful to us. And we know, of course, that not everybody has the ability to donate. We understand that. But if you cannot, one way to really help us is by promoting us and by circulating that GoFundMe link. And right now, I believe we have 550 raised out of 4,800 that we need. We're also being very, very transparent about where that money's going. It's specifically going to the basic needs to get us there, and that's plane tickets, our drives to DC or flights to DC. Obviously, Steve and I, we're going to have to fly to, London. We can't drive there, and I don't think either of us are going to take a boat. So, yeah, we have to. That's where those expenses are going towards.
Simple lodging.
Yes.
And if we have some extra money for things like food or helping with posters, if we need any kind of video equipment to help stream while we're on location, extra money would go towards that.
Yeah, I don't know how safe it is to bring equipment to, because I do want to film with a camera, which I could do that. I don't know how safe it is to travel with those, with items like that. And then also we have to consider, we have to definitely weigh the risk and consider the potential for being stopped at the border. We know that the GCHQ is worse than the NSA, I think. That's what they're saying. So we have to be really prepared for all of these things. But the point is that we have to provide the facts in this case, and that's what we intend to do.
Isn't it sad that fucking people running a YouTube show that literally have like no influence in the world whatsoever have to worry about like intelligence when we travel. Like that's fucking crazy. Like just because of the nature of the material that we give a fuck about in our daily lives.
I mean, yeah, us going to DC, we're kind of going to the belly of the beast, and we're even talking about, things to be on alert about and concerned about, and just everybody's safety, and making sure we're taking appropriate steps to, keep everyone safe while we're there, and wanting everybody to, if you're able to come to DC too, we want people in the U.S. to gather there. If you are able to come that week, that would be amazing. We're planning different locations right now, and as we get closer, we're going to start announcing those things too.
Yep, and we have actually, with the kind grace of the Unity for J team, if you're interested in organizing with us, we have a communication medium we can invite you to.
Yes.
So that's something, if you want to get involved in the back end of things, we can help bring you in to talk about stuff like that, which I think would be really cool just to get more people active and involved there. But something you can do if you're thinking about attending, start getting posters now. Start getting little simple things now. Spend $20 a week getting things together and start putting them up in your local community. So that way, when you come out here or come to DC, it's already like a thing, essentially, I guess would be the way to describe it. And it's Julian, I guess, had described it best when he talked about how every time we're faced with injustice, if we choose not to act, we're then training ourselves not to act towards injustice. I butchered the quote, but
You did.
yeah, long story short of it is we can't wait for the bad things to happen in the world to start acting against them in a peaceful, nonviolent, and decentralized way. So it's a matter of, hey, let's get up and do this now before the next piece of news comes out to talk about the fate of the world. Like, let's participate in changing it instead of responding to it, I guess would be the point.
Sorry, Andrew, that sounded like a really bitch thing to say. I can't recite the quote exactly, but I know which one you're referring to. It's like a famous Julian Assange quote, and it's like beautifully put. So he knows that I'm not really being a bitch, but it's a great quote. Julian, we always talk about on this vigil that he's an excellent writer and he is an excellent speaker, and we need him. We need him in our world, and we need his journalism and his work because he is so great. Now, William Martyr is saying that we're not addressing how to overcome fascism. I think we are. If you could please clarify what you mean by that.
We talk about, like, I would just say watch our last vigil where we go through the intro to cypherpunks and the first couple parts of cypherpunks, if you want references to that, about what key infrastructure is believed to be needed to be secured so that way we can communicate in an encrypted way to bring about nonviolent change within a system. So we address that in so many words quite regularly.
Like every time that we're on the air, there's some sort of discussion about what we can do individually, what we can do together. If you're not hearing it phrased exactly the way that you want to hear it phrased, like, I don't know if it's gonna happen that way. I don't. We don't come to this thing with a script. We it's but it's a frequent topic of conversation, not just here on Action for Assange, but when one of us is asked to be on somebody else's show or on my show, we get at it.
I do want to bring it back to the debates. Earlier, there was a question directed at Andrew Yang, was, what would you say on your first phone call with Putin? And his response was, sorry, I beat your guy. Just kind of these questions, like, how is this going to help the American people? Like, we're asking questions, and of course, Andrew Yang is promoting the Russiagate narrative with this and indulging them, but just the lack of just awareness of some of these questions. Like it's just not there. Like we're really not tackling the tough issues here.
No, and
Right,
that's
like
I made a point too that look at who's and this is such an overexhausted idea. But I mean, look at who's asking these questions. We have Rachel Maddow. They have 4 women, so they think that they're being like progressive and with having 4 women, but really it's always the same out of touch people asking these questions whose interests and qualities that they value in a candidate is inherently different than ours and like 90% of Americans.
Looks like we're going
and
to commercial now.
and also with saying the fucking whole "sorry I beat your guy" thing, like why not say, hey, how can we end the war in Syria? Like how can we
Yeah.
end the U.S.'s illegal occupation in Syria without millions of civilians being killed?
He had some other points, so maybe he brought up Syria, but I'm not quite sure if he did.
I don't know.
Somebody in the
If
chat
that's-
let us know if they heard anything relevant on Syria. But I doubt it.
Sorry, I'm not listening or reading to it. I'm
No,
just
it's okay. It's okay. I
like
just wanted to
if
preface it that he did say some more stuff afterwards, but I did not
Okay.
catch what his other points were.
I just like talking shit about candidates. I can do it all day. It's fun.
Yes.
Yeah, so William Martyr
easy.
is saying that we are ignoring, and I keep bringing this person up and I'll stop, but they are saying that we are ignoring like massive strikes or something. All of us have been on the ground.
No, his
supporting Julian
thing is an at-home general strike. So
Oh.
here's the thing.
We'll address it so it
If you
ends.
want to successfully pull off a general strike, you have to be comfortable with the fact that you can go to federal prison for simply participating in a general strike. It's the Taft-Hartley Act, which bans general strikes. Through 1947, the law was enacted. Which is, I mean, great. You go just as easily go to jail at a protest. So it's hit and miss who's going to be locked up over a general strike. You could maybe find a way, and this is where the decentralized activism comes in, to coordinate it so that millions of people are protesting whatever the fuck they want to, but you're not calling it exactly a general strike. If you understand the parameters of it, sure. What that means in terms of our military doing their constitutional duty if people stay the fuck home, I'm not sure. I'm not. I you know,
I think we have less to worry
we're
about with
so far removed from constitutional duty and military in the first place when we A, with all wars are bankers' wars, but B, specifically over since World War I, we've done nothing but expand our empire in wars that allow us to take over the natural resources or the labor of every country we've stepped foot in, with the
and
exception of Vietnam.
and you can see us making moves to pull off the fucking green empire right now, with the current destabilizations going on in South America, because that's where all the lithium is from, and you need lithium for your car batteries. So it's this whole interconnected process of, hey, even if we choose to go with this eco-friendly system, we're still collapsing nations to have our countries be the ones to be allowed to exploit these resources from the earth in the first place. So even with like these fake ass candidates' push to green up the military and that kind of bullshit, all that means is we're just going to invade a different set of countries for a different set of reasons.
So William Martyr, you don't need to be condescending or rude about stuff. We're trying to help people figure out the best ways to advocate for Julian Assange. That's what this is about. We do it with online vigils. We do it with posting signs in our communities to spread the message to others who are not going to be exposed to the message online, and also to avoid censorship. So you don't have to be condescending about it. Of course, we know he is still in jail, and we are going to continue to fight to ensure that he gets out of that prison and that he does not face an extradition to the United States.
I think if anything, we have tried to each show talk about Julian's current condition, and especially after the October 21st hearing, we really drove it home about the seriousness of his situation and what is happening to his person and how he's being treated by the UK, and yeah, how just how manipulative they're being and not allowing him to prepare for this coming hearing in February.
Do we want to talk
Yeah.
about
Oh, go ahead.
the stuff on the 18th? Do we want to touch on that?
The case management hearing on the
Yeah.
18th. Yeah, so speaking of that, there was a case management hearing that Julian Assange appeared via video link in London at Westminster Magistrates Court. November 18th, and then there'll be one on December 19th as well. And really, we didn't get a whole lot of information. Julian did state his name, his birthday. People did see him on the video link. And there was a point brought up that's been reported on about how either the computer he has access to, I believe, is not very well functioning. I think the lawyers tried to bring up that he needs a functioning computer to be able to read court documents and prepare. And the judge that was in this hearing basically said it was none of her concern and out of her control, and was pretty dismissive of that, that point that the lawyers brought up. So again, we're seeing the judges being very cold and callous and not putting any effort into helping the situation he's in so that his defense can properly prepare for this extradition hearing.
So I want to make a point that the day that the Swedish investigation was dropped, Belmarsh mysteriously decided to disallow visitors for that day.
Yes.
This is another so we have no way of knowing when Julian found out that this case was dismissed, again. Hopefully third time's a charm. Looks like it's gonna be. But the way that the way that they just relentlessly fuck with this guy, when on the October 21st, it was either his birthday or the 21st hearing, when there were people that were gathered outside of Belmarsh, and they walked him a specifically different and very counterintuitive way back to his cell so that he wouldn't be able to see or hear the people who had gathered outside.
Yeah, that was the 21st hearing, when then, yeah, they had a lot of, seemed like decoy vans. The protesters outside thought he was in a van that they gathered around, and turns out he was sitting somewhere for like 2 to 3 hours, and Rupley happened to find them and get some footage of him. So yeah, they were being very deceptive on where he was coming and going into that court.
So Elisa Parola asked, does anyone know what is happening with the recording of the Spanish company where Julian has been denied to testify? Any other news? We were going to touch on that. Basically, what is happening is that it was revealed that, well, we already knew this, but it's been officially revealed that a Spanish private firm was spying on those in the embassy, specifically journalists, particularly journalists who were American and Russian, and also Julian Assange's communications with his attorneys was spied on, which is a direct violation of his right to attorney-client privilege. To me, I believe, I'm not a legal expert, but I believe that is grounds to throw out a case or to cease moving forward with the case, because his trial would therefore be unfair. The judge or the magistrate in Julian's case has denied the defense's request to postpone the February full extradition hearing so they could use evidence that will be presented in the Spanish case. So that is where we're at. We had more news on that though tonight, didn't we?
Yes, so journalist, let me find this, journalist Stefania Marazzi who's done a lot of work on trying to get documents revealed through the courts on Julian Assange and WikiLeaks and how they've been treated in the UK. I did an article and revealed some videos of herself and even Glenn Greenwald visiting Julian Assange that they were illegally spied on, and videos being taken of, not only his doctors, lawyers, visitors, other journalists. So yeah, this court case continues, and like we've stated before, that part of the reason Julian's lawyers asked for a delay in the extradition hearing was so that this Spanish spy court case could be wrapped up and they could use evidence to present into the US extradition hearing. And of course, we know that was denied. But yeah, that is a big piece going on with how his rights and other people's rights have been violated through this spying.
And this Spanish private security firm was basically, obviously was spying on those who went into the embassy, but then also providing that information to American intelligence, specifically the CIA. So this was a collaborated effort among Spanish authorities and American authorities. So this is we've spoken about this before on the vigils. This is a very deep-rooted issue as far as the intelligence agencies abusing their power and having a lot of control over our society and our legal system, which we already knew that based off of their own documents. So that is the updates on that. We will continue to discuss that Spanish case specifically, but it seems at this point that the information from the Spanish case will not be allowed to be used in the full extradition hearing. So that is where that is at. Thank you for asking. And again, if you guys in the chat have any more questions or any comments about the debate taking place right now, do let us know in the chat so we can discuss all of that. Elisa Parola, who asked that question, is saying if he would be given the chance to testify, probably he would be free already. I don't know if that is the case, only because he's a very heavily persecuted individual, and much of the law has been disregarded in this case. So I don't know, but
not only that, but as John Kiriaku's explained many, many times, Julian's testimony would be given closed door to a national security state judge and a national security state jury.
In the Spanish case, though?
Oh, in the Spanish case.
I think that's what she was referring to.
Oh, well, yeah,
they requested to interview him, but the UK is blocking it.
Yeah, the UK is not going to allow him to participate.
Yeah, so I'm sure he would probably love to. He probably has lots of things to say, but yeah, the UK has blocked at least the first request from the Spanish court case.
It would take whatever the European Union's version of their Supreme Court, or something of that stature to get the UK to budge on that, which they don't have to if they successfully Brexit with their upcoming election.
That's true.
Okay, so William Martyr was giving us some suggestions about reaching out to Pamela Anderson. We have numerous times. We talk about a lot of our stuff that we do on previous vigils. I believe this is the first one that you are watching. Thank you for watching. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about a lot of our activism efforts, and we appreciate you sending us some suggestions. But yes, we've
hey, look, if you're conversational with Pam Anderson, just set that shit up. If you can do that easier, faster, or better than we can, make it happen.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, by all means. And that goes for anybody. Like if you have access to someone who you want to see on the show, fucking, help your family out a little bit. Like open the door. I would open the door for you. And it's not just so I could look at your booty. It's because I was raised right. Like it reciprocate, that's all I'm saying.
Right. Okay, Truly Progressive is asking, can Julian give a deposition instead of testifying? Uh, I don't think that question doesn't make sense. Deposition is a court like proceeding. It's not like something that he would be engaged in. So that
I
question
mean,
doesn't
they're
make
not allowing them to talk to him in any way, shape, or form. So,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
gotta
I'm
meet.
sure
But
You've
there
gotta.
have been
deposition is like
attempts,
a
but it sounds
pretrial.
like the UK has blocked everything. So
Yeah.
they
It's just
they've
Yeah, they're
made
not
the
going to give
man
him.
completely
trial thing.
inaccessible to anyone and everything. I mean, they've moved the extradition hearing out of the public eye. Like they don't want him talking to anybody and putting him in solitary confinement for 23 hours of the day and giving limited access to his lawyers and court documents and holding his mail for months. Like UK really does not want him speaking.
No, they don't. And like Steve was suggesting earlier about what John Kiriakou has said on this show and has said publicly before too, is that Julian, if he is extradited to the United States and faces trial here, he would be his case would be under SIPA, so it would be a national security case where all of the information, the overwhelming majority of the information presented in the case would not be allowed to be made public because it would be considered a threat to national security or extremely sensitive information. And yeah, so we would not have access to his testimony anyways. And the jury, even, which would be made up of uh, members of the intelligence agencies, they would not even be allowed to hear much of the evidence in the case anyway, because again, it would be considered sensitive information. So I wanted to also point that out. Just looking in the chat for more questions.
And they don't want this information getting out, like, at all. Like, the fact that WikiLeaks exists is enough for them to fucking roll over and have to try to figure this situation out, let alone having to try to find a way to break every one of their laws to be able to prosecute him. So they're not going to let this just go in any direction that would in any way benefit him in any way, shape, or form. So public pressure, in my opinion, is really our option for winning the legal case, is building enough pressure that they cannot extradite him.
Right.
So
And there's
it sounds like in the debate they were talking about, and please correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, there was some talk about Elizabeth Warren expanding the military, and of course they skipped Tulsi on this question. So yeah, like we really are towing the establishment line here by talking about expanding the military at the Democratic.
I said it in
debate.
the chat, but it bears repeating. These debates are for the consultants, the advertisers, and to give the news cycle something to talk about for a few days, so they don't have to report on real shit. Like the questions that you're going to get, and there are a few instances where someone will say something in a debate that people need to hear, outside of uh, a YouTube channel. Um, so in terms of getting like a national conversation about things started, yeah, I guess, but it's so few and far between from what these fucking gaslight-o-ramas really are. And again, the most left candidate on stage, or the one with the most like radical social agenda, wants us to catch up to where most developed countries were 45 years ago. And that is literally the best that's being offered in terms of this Democratic Party. Now, if you look at some of the people like who are trying to run as a green, um they have incredibly further, incredibly more radical agendas that actually have some real world solutions behind them, and a lot of that has to do with the way that we grow and prepare and receive our food. Like the fact that there's deforestation at an incredible rate in South America and specifically in Brazil for beef cattle. It's absolutely insane. We do need to. I'm not advocating for anyone to stop eating meat or anything like that, and but just rethink the way that you do that. And um, I think if we can become more food sustainable, and the technology is there for you to be able to grow your food on your own property, it really is, or a good chunk of it. We automatically depend less on government.
All right, I have to make this clear. Humanity is asking Action for Assange, do you give a portion of funds raised to Courage Foundation? We don't raise funds. So no, because we don't raise funds. We don't take money. The only funds we're raising at this time is our GoFundMe to report on the full extradition hearing, and then also to protest in DC. That's it. But besides that, Action for Assange does not take any money.
Yeah, and I would say, because we'll make it public, like as this money comes in and as we spend it and choose to use it to get us to these places and get housing and stuff, whatever's left over, we will absolutely donate to people and things like that if it's not used to directly help the protests at the time. So yeah, like we've reached out to Courage Foundation. I talk with someone there fairly regularly. We tried to find a way to get our wristbands into their shop, just as a way to have a little fundraiser going on for them behind the scenes. We didn't have any luck getting that into the shop to help them as a fundraiser, but I don't think any of the hosts would have an issue with whatever leftover money we have donating it to. I would say Chelsea directly to her campaign because she has the biggest like daily financial burden, I would say. But even if it's just to the Courage Foundation, either way.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll have to be very clear.
We want to support both Chelsea and Julian's legal defense funds, and if we come into that situation where we have extra money, yeah, we will definitely talk about it, and we will definitely make that transparent and let people know what we're doing and where it's going.
Right, of course. So I'm just looking in the chat for any more questions from you all. Again, do leave us some questions. The debates right now, I believe, are on a break. I'm seeing on Twitter that Nico House said something about how Tulsi was not asked about her cannabis bill that she just.
You're trying to get me to believe that Nico House tweeted about Tulsi? Taylor.
That's
I mean, I've heard some wild shit in my day, but
yeah, I guess that they did bring up the cannabis issue in the US.
Yeah, it looks
they did
like
not ask
people
her, and she's deaf. She just like drafted up a bill or something just passed, but they failed to ask her about it specifically. So it's interesting that they are really, well, it's not interesting, it's unsurprising that, of course, when it's the most relevant issues and the candidates who have the best responses or answers to it, they're of course not going to give them the chance to talk about it.
Did anyone talk about it as a way to disarm the American public?
Well, Cory Booker went after Biden. I didn't get to hear all of it, but he did. I think was actually maybe making some good points about how it's been used to go after and put certain populations in prison. Yeah, if anybody picked out any good lines, it looked like it was getting a little heated between the two of them. So, and if everybody knows that, I believe this past week Joe Biden came out and said that he would not make legal
gateway drug.
That he believes it is still a gateway drug. So that is his stance on the issue.
Joe Biden is up there because he is the most malleable. Like if the national security state wants a complete just fucking puppet, Joe Biden represents that to a T. He has right-wing convictions. He has imperialist convictions. He screamed in pride, "I'm a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist." He's corrupt as a fucking is anyone, you know? he proven he likes the little kitties a bit too much in public, which makes me wonder what he does when no one's looking. He's in there with fucking the Clintons like that. You know, every everything that the national security state would want in a willing servant, they have in Joe Biden. The only one who comes close or the same is Buttigieg. Um, and then after that, Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris, because they're going to do what they're told.
And with Joe Biden too, he pulls the Overton window so far to the right. So it makes his point of view sound legitimate when it's not. It makes someone saying marijuana is a gateway drug be taken seriously by all the baby boomers that have repeated the marijuana is a gateway drug
Mhm.
their entire life. Because Bernie Sanders isn't the furthest right voice on the stage. He's the furthest left voice. He is the furthest acceptable option the elite are willing to allow us to be sold so they can still maintain control over society. Because we'll still be waging wars when we have Medicare for all. Like, I support Medicare for all. I think it's a great thing, but there's no reason to allow this to continue functioning this way.
Oh, hey, they brought up journalist rights. Solitary Reaper, I'm seeing, is talking about that on Twitter right now. Did they really? Guys, let us know in the chat because I missed that. They talked about journalist rights. I'm guessing they didn't bring up Julian Assange. Please let us know what they talked about.
They're talking about Roe versus Wade now, so I did not see that either.
I didn't see that. Do let us know if they did, guys, because that's obviously huge and something that we want to touch on.
We could have the delay on the stream, so it could be different than the live show.
Right, because they said this is coming
Yeah,
from
now they're talking
Solitary.
about abortion laws.
That's interesting.
So while we're looking real quick to touch on the idea of abortion law, legally Roe versus Wade is built on the Fourth Amendment, which is your basic right to privacy. The Patriot Act absolutely destroys the Fourth Amendment because it says you have no right to privacy. So as an ally in the struggle, women's rights and the rights to privacy and internet freedom and the liberty of actual speech and press freedom are very, very interconnected and interrelated. So I think that that's kind of a really important thing to shout out is no struggle is independent of any other in this fight. So like the struggle for the right for a woman to control her own body is as empirical as it is for us to actually be able to communicate the ideas in an effective manner.
I find it interesting that this keeps getting brought up because I feel like all the candidates pretty much agree, but it seems to be something that's brought up in almost every debate.
Yeah, I thought we already. Yeah, I mean, it's like I think we all pretty much agree. It's not like
Steve said, it's sort of the token line that advertisers can use, and we can, the easy questions, I think, is what's happening here.
All right, Solitary Reaper is saying that yes, they did talk about. They said no, they bring up journalists, just not Julian Assange. Coward Bernie. Solitary Reaper says it was just before I tweeted 30 minutes ago. They talked about journalists, and Bernie went on and on and on about Khashoggi. Okay, well, thank you for clearing that up. So no mention of Julian Assange. And then, of course, what happened to Khashoggi was horrific and it deserves attention. It needs to be talked about. But you have to support all journalists, all persecuted journalists,
right?
And then say, oh, yeah, we could get
the U.S. really cannot talk about condemning that killing of a journalist when we are watching the slow motion murder of a journalist in the UK by the hands of the US right now. Like, we really don't have any room to start talking about that specific case and not look at the elephant in the room that is Julian Assange dying in Belmarsh right now.
Yeah, exactly. A real missed opportunity there. Yeah, but you know about the abortion thing, issue rather. Yeah, it is interesting they keep bringing up because it's something that you think everybody really does, agree with and feel the same about. And it seems like there's many other issues that are unresolved that are deserving of attention at this time. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they're still talking about it. So we are spending a lot of time and letting each candidate talk about it. Sort of maybe some virtue signaling of giving them things they all agree on and want to talk about. Now it looks like we might actually be moving on to something else. I think we're talking about voter ID next is the next question here. Yeah.
Yeah, they are talking about
Yeah,
that.
Equal access.
I want to call this out. Truly Progressive. See Today Zero had 7.4 billion in Obama-linked laundered cash funneled to dim investment funds. I'll go look at that right now. I know one of the things that I just saw was that the Clinton Foundation posted like almost a $17 million loss for the first time after their audit was completed for 2018. They went from $267 million in 2017 to negative 16.8. I couldn't happen to a nicer couple.
Right? Like, it's a shame that they can't sell the access to the U.S. government anymore. Like, it really breaks my heart when bad people lose a lot of money. But I mean, that's good news. Like, that's a reason to smile.
Yeah. So, I'm just not gonna. Never mind. Okay, Truly Progressive is saying in the Dems you are giving air to are benefiting from this theft of public funds. The Dems who want Assange dead, those Dems benefit from the stolen funds. Look, I know where the candidates stand on Julian Assange. Truly Progressive, I wrote an entire article about it. We are talking about this to hold them accountable. We should be doing that. I don't see harm in doing that. We're also talking about other issues that are related to Julian Assange as well simultaneously, and we're answering your questions.
And look, man, everybody is on a different part of their path. Some people who watch this video may not be as further along as you. Maybe they don't know the shit that we've been talking about in regards to what the candidates have said, what their prior positions have been, who's given them money, how they got to be this crooked. It's a process. Fuck.
Yeah, exactly. And we all know how they feel about Assange. We're here to educate others, and we see what you're doing right now.
And I don't think any of us really have respect for like the process of politics or like the political operations of nations or
No.
cities or congressional bodies, because it's like at this point it's just a joke. Like, it's just all owned by the wealthy, and to some extent always has been. But
Right,
now
that
it's just
Patriot Act that Nancy Pelosi, fucking Democratic Speaker of the House, is fighting to get extended right now. Joe Biden wrote that in 1995. It was called the Omnibus Counterterrorism Act, and it was what became the Patriot Act. The reason they had a fucking piece of legislation that thick ready to go within 20 days after the September 11th fucking greatest false flag in modern American history. Is because they had a fucking template to go off of. And the guy who's standing up there trying to con enough people into getting enough delegates to be able to pull off a contested convention in another rigged election and become the fucking next milquetoast centrist Democrat Republican fucking with a D next to his name to lose to Donald Trump. People
Tulsi
need to know
Gabbard.
about that.
Tulsi might be
Gabbard
going
right now is
after
taking
Pete.
on Pete Buttigieg.
This could hopefully be good.
Yeah, this could be good.
Everybody was kind of hoping she'd go after him tonight.
Yeah. I'm gonna see what they're saying.
Did any of you guys see Jason Burmis's video about the guards being arrested from Epstein? Did you
Yeah.
guys see that or hear about that? The chief of the prison said that the investigation was unfolding in a way that they were looking into it as if it was a criminal enterprise that was involved in his death, and that some of the guards had actually been let go and they're under investigation for being a part of it. I think that's accurate if I have that right. Just as an interesting side note.
They're squeezing out that circus for as much as they can get out of it, man. And again, all of it centers around you can't, everything is acceptable in the realm of the conversation as long as the conversation ends that Jeffrey Epstein died in that room.
Hmm.
Once you start talking about successful extractions from that prison, in which there have been many, where that prison is notorious for bot guards, for inmates getting up and walking away, for just systemic corruption from the warden on down, like that specific facility is notorious, man. And it is absolutely not out of the realm of possibility, nor even out of a field manual on how to successfully extract someone from a jail cell.
So it sounds like Tulsi is calling out Pete for saying that he would send armed forces into Mexico. And he's denying saying something. He's now, backstepping his statement. And she's still going at him. So,
He doesn't look happy.
no.
So I'm sorry, I muted you guys for a bit. The audience reaction was not that great for Tulsi. I don't think. Did you watch it, Christy?
I just kind of reading the captions, but I'm not getting all the audience reaction with it either.
Yeah, the audience reaction, it was, a little disappointed. Not easy to watch, honestly. Right.
So did you hear it? It was the statement that he had made about sending armed forces into Mexico that she was calling out?
Yes, and he was like, you can't possibly think that people think that it's good to invade Mexico or something, and the audience was laughing. And then he was bringing up the Assad talking point, like, you met with a dictator. Okay. And then the audience was cheering and that sort of thing. So
I mean, of course the audience is going to be stacked against her, like,
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
To be expected that they're going to be an establishment audience who are going to support that smear.
Right. And but he went there, he brought that up. And she did, I think she could have came out maybe a little bit stronger against him. I could see she was kind of like startled by the audience reaction, as anybody would be. I mean, as anybody would be.
Caitlin Johnstone just tweeted, Tulsi Gabbard met Assad? I've never heard this before.
Yeah,
like,
right. I know.
This is brand new information. Like, this is a really old thing that the candidates try to use against her that's been really overplayed.
And so Buttigieg is being sold as like the compromise candidate, like Warren, Buttigieg, shit like that. And like he can't even figure out a way to weasel word out of saying that he wants to fucking invade Mexico. And he's supposed to be like the compromise for a leftist. And he's like, shut up, you talk to a dictator. Like, I can invade another country. Like, fuck you.
Even
like,
though Nancy Pelosi
drugs,
and other people have met with him too. I'm going to throw that in your face. Like,
right. Like, it's the whole thing's just such bullshit. Like, if you can look at it from the perspective of every person on there is an actor to try to corral you to support the Democratic Party, which is what they are and what they're doing, then the entire perception changes, because then you understand that the people on the left end of the spectrum are just there to control where your frustration goes, even if they're trying to eke out something good in the process.
Right. I'm going to look in the chat. Yeah, again, if you guys have any comments on that, or any questions you want us to answer about Julian Assange and the latest news, or if you have any comments on what you saw in that exchange between Pete and Tulsi, please leave it in the chat.
Oh, and real quick, if any of you grew up in like came of age in the early to mid 90s, you may remember Pete Buttigieg from this album cover that he did when he was a child. He is I never seen a better spitting image of that little fucking cherry-cheeked imperialist than that I have from that. I'm sorry I had to do that. I hope we don't get like a copyright strike.
Oh, I was like, where is he going with this? And not what I was expecting. And I do remember that album cover. Thank you.
Beto O'Rourke dropped out, didn't he?
Yes.
That makes me so sad because I can't talk shit about him being a Cult of the Dead Cow member anymore. Like
Did
I
he drop
can't.
out in Spanish? Did anyone see?
I don't know if he's dropped out in Spanish. Maybe he that would have been appropriate.
It would have been far more emotional.
Right? Right? He could have telenoveled it all up, man. Fucking
Right.
got right in there.
He could have
best
used
part
his like
is that-
upper Middle Eastern accent to talk about how, or to sound like he was just saying words in Spanish as they're written in English.
Mayor Pete's Twitter profile picture is almost that exact same color background too of that album cover. I just happened to catch it on Twitter just now, and I was like, "Whoa! How did it? Nope, it's almost identical to that picture." Oh.
So for a while there, when Pete started running, he didn't have anything remotely resembling a policy, but he did have an entire section devoted to color palettes that you could help vote on to select what CIA Pete's team colors would be. I'm not fucking kidding.
Oh wow.
And like a breakdown of what they meant and what emotions they were supposed to, convey or invoke in people. Yeah. Presidential candidate. Not kidding.
Like I don't get hardcore Marianne Williamson supporters. Like I know she's not really running anymore, or I don't know if she's running, but just kind of.
I don't think she's officially dropped out, but she obviously has not qualified for the last two debates, I believe.
I just checked, and I believe she's still in the race, but yeah, she hasn't qualified she has not qualified for the debates, obviously, the past several exchanges. Oh, Humanity, you're not muted, just so you know. By the way, where are the rest of the images from the burst of photos taken by Murdoch's conveniently placed photographer? I don't know what you're talking about.
It looks like now they're making closing statements.
Yeah, I
on the
noticed
debate.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it was supposed to go till 11, but of course it always goes a little bit over.
Well, yeah, Elizabeth Warren had to tell us why we can't have a bunch of things.
Right.
Tulsi's talking right now.
Yeah. At Action First, this is from William Martyr. At Action for Assange, I'm getting the idea that you're sort of laser focused on Assange. I asked you this, once he's freed, does that magically make fascism and all the other problems go away?
Well, our vigil is called the Free Assange Vigil, so we are laser focused on Assange, yes. But
So,
we do like to talk about other things in relation to him.
And if you could explain a situation upon which Assange can actually be free, like more so than just out of jail, but truly free, that doesn't involve the end of the like Anglo Empire that kind of rules the world right now. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that Taylor's involved in the 1 versus 5i campaign. There's a reason that Christie was involved in Unity for Jay. Like we've all fucking been involved in activism in one way, shape, or form since I was a teenager. It's not Of course, it's the Free Assange online vigil series, and there is a tendency to get, um, I guess, mired down in the detail, but there's a decades or more worth of arbitrary detention and torture and fucking psychological humiliation, and all of this rolls down into we can happen to activists anywhere at any time. It could happen to journalists anywhere at any time. Max Blumenthal recently got arrested on some bullshit. Like, Julian Assange is uh not just a man who's being, tortured and unfairly imprisoned for the crime of printing the truth. He's also a symbol. He's also every single one of us that do legitimate journalism. He's um, something that he's a person that we can talk about in a very relatable way, um, because everything that he has said about what would happen with the national security state, everything that he has said about what would happen with the surveillance state, everything that he has said that would happen to himself has borne out to be true. And I've said this before, but the great thing about being able to host a show about whistleblowers in general, about WikiLeaks, and about Julian Assange is that all of the information that we discuss is immediately accessible and verifiable, and still is to this day accessible and verifiable. You don't have to take anything that we say at face value. You can, with one simple fucking keyword, go look it up for yourself on Wiki. 9 times
So
out, or in terms of, like, the statements by Nils Melzer, you have a first person account in Nils Melzer who prints the stuff that he writes.
so we had a question come in from Jeannie RN over in the Periscope chat, and she said, what will Julian's December 18th hearing be for?
It's another case management hearing on the defendwikileaks.org website. They did make a note that they might rediscuss the dates. I don't know if the lawyer team is going to try to ask for a delay again. I'm not sure what that will result in, but that's the only note I have seen. And again, that's from defendwikileaks.org. So there is some officialness to that. So I trust what is printed on there. So yeah, December 19th is the next case management hearing. And I'm sure, I don't know if there will be one in January or if this will be the last one. So probably some discussion on more on the logistics and details for February is what I'm assuming based on that comment.
Okay, is there any other, so they're wrapping up the debates right now. Is there any other news that we did want to touch on that we have not already, or any important upcoming dates or things that we want to discuss?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
No, I did take a look into I glanced really at the Zero Hedge article about the $7.4 billion being laundered and whatnot, and it has to do with the Burisma Holdings, which is the financial firm that Hunter Biden was appointed to the board of, as well as, like, one of, I believe, Nancy Pelosi's kids and another high-ranking congressional official. Um, and it's dirty as hell, and like, Russiagate really in its essence was created as a response to all of this shit that is starting to come out about Ukraine, and all of the extensive financial crimes and corruption that the Obama administration pulled off and got away with. Everything from the what we're talking about here with Burisma to the arming of neo-Nazis and a fucking overthrow of the government there, a takeover of the government there. And when the polling, or I guess the polling came back, the internal polling on Hillary Clinton through the DNC for what was the issue that she was most likely going to get hit with, and get hit with accurately. What was her biggest weak spot? It was the $20 million uranium one deal that went through Ukraine, and they had to find a way to turn all of that back onto their opponent, turn it around onto the opponent. So the allegations that Trump was coordinating and collaborating with Russia stem largely from dealings that Hillary Clinton had and the Obama administration had with the Ukraine and with Russia, from 2009 to 2016.
So in the chat, we have a question from Humanity asking, Jen Robinson said Emma Arbuthnot would not be on the case moving forward. If she was to actually recuse herself, would the decision she's made thus far be revisited? I am not a legal expert. None of us on this panel are. I don't believe that her rulings would be able to be reversed unless those specific rulings were found to be
She was only on, actually sat on one of the first couple of hearings, maybe only one, but apparently she's been overseeing the
Yeah,
other judges. So it's a good question. I am not sure. I'd have to look back and see which ones she actually sat on, and if it was something that, if she made any decisions. I know she wasn't the one who rejected bail, so.
What I think we can do going forward, if we get a small list of questions, like 3 or 4 questions, I could probably try to get my contact at the Courage Foundation to answer them to the best of their abilities
They might
about different
with that.
things like this, because there's not a established way to get on-demand legal information about what's happening with Julian. Like, they're as good as they can be, but they don't have a PR force. Like, that's
No, they don't right now. And Courage Foundation is pretty limited on resources too. But
Yeah.
yeah, if we could definitely try to connect with them and see if we can get some answers. I know a
because I
lot of
really
people
want to
have a lot of
highlight
legal
them too,
questions.
because we haven't had anyone on to talk about what and why the Courage Foundation exists beyond just us talking about it. So I think that might be cool too.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Are there any other things that we do want to touch on, or any announcements before we wrap this up or go around?
I mean, this was just a coincidence that the debates landed on the night that we do the vigils. If you liked this format, if you liked hearing us discuss the debates, let us know. Maybe it'll be something we do again. Obviously, our focus is on Julian Assange, but we do want to be critical of the candidates and their stances on Assange and many other things that are related to his case.
Right. Anything else, you guys? Should I start?
Yeah.
Sure.
Wrap it up?
Start the end.
All right. Yeah. So tonight was a different episode. It was our 20th week of doing these vigils. So as Christy said, do let us know if you enjoyed this. Let us know what you would like us to do more often. I know you guys did enjoy the book club that we held last week. We plan on continuing to do that, and also continuing to discuss the leaks that WikiLeaks drops when they do drop them. But again, thank you all for watching, and thank you to all of our new viewers. I know we had a few this evening, so thank you for standing alongside us. Make sure that you do subscribe to our channel and that you hit the like button if you have not already. Again, we do have no allegiance to any candidate or any political party. We hold everybody equally accountable. And of course, our focus is on Julian Assange, whistleblowers, journalists, and activists. Our allegiance is to those people, not any candidate. Everybody is will be held equally accountable. And so that's why we discussed this evening. And in addition to the fact that the debate was held tonight. So thank you again. And also make sure that you do also follow the One versus Five Eye campaign. That is Susie Dawson's campaign to take on the Five Eyes intelligence agencies. And there is the final episode of the teach-ins that'll be held this Sunday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you do check that out. And also make sure that you do watch the other archived videos if you have not already. Follow the campaign on Twitter at the number 1, the letters VS, the number 5, the letter I. For more information on the campaign, visit oneversus5i.com. And Susie, this campaign is not only about educating people about the intelligence agencies and holding them to account, but it's also about empowering Susie financially to take them on in a court of law. The way you can do so is by donating to the campaign by visiting oneversus5i.com/donate. Any donation is greatly appreciated. And if you can't donate, please circulate that donation link. And for updates on the campaign, do follow us on Twitter. And also on Monday, I will be going live with Graham Elwood to discuss the campaign, how you could get involved, and then also just more about the intelligence agencies and how they operate specifically, and why it is important that we do hold them to account, and why their mass surveillance of people impacts everybody, not just journalists, activists, and political dissidents. So that will be on Monday. We'll be going live. I'm not sure what time yet. And then I'll also be on Ron Falcone's channel. I believe that will be live. But again, which day next week, I'm not 100% sure. But again, thank you guys so much for watching this evening. My name is Taylor Hudak, and you can follow me on Twitter at _Taylor Hudak.
Yeah, my name's Andrew Smith. You can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Zigman. And just get out there and do what you can with what you have, whether it's handshakes and signs and posters and flyers, or just getting involved to help your community become more food sustainable. No matter what you do, no matter what banner you pick up, you're the person that's doing it, and that makes all the difference.
If you are just seeing me for the first time, my name is Steve Poikinen. I host a show called Slow News Day, which is still currently on YouTube, although we'll see what happens after December 10th. I do whatever I can to avoid using corporate media as the baseline material for my content. I bring on independent journalists, independent content creators, and use their work for the baseline content of my material. This Sunday, and I have a live stream every Sunday from 10 to noon Pacific time, 1 to 3 Eastern time. This Sunday, I will be joined by Jared Beck and by Gordon Dimick. So that should be one hell of a show. Until then, good luck to us all.
And my name is Christy Doff. You can find me at Christy Doff on Twitter. And please, if you can, share our GoFundMe link. I'm going to put that in the chat right now. We are raising money to send the 4 of us to London and DC for the extradition hearing in February 2020. If you can donate, awesome. But if you can't, please share, tag us so we know that you're spreading the love. Help with subscribers on our channel. Hopefully we don't disappear on December 10th, but we are working on backing everything up and looking into other avenues just in case. So yeah, follow ActionForAssange on Twitter to stay up with updates on the campaign. But please, yes, share that GoFundMe and donate if you can.
All right. Thank you, guys.